So let's summarize where we're at here. We got proper accounts, which some of us didn't have the appropriate accounts off of here. We created a conductor page or a conductor project for our project. That conductor project, wherever it happened to be, is right here. For my project, from the conductor project, I created an empty textbook that was in the workbench. From that, I was then able to pull up the remixer, which I'll just do right here, and allows me to be able to bring in existing pages from the library or to create empty pages using just the left side here. I will mention here that you have a little tutorial here, so if you want some help, you can top this on and it goes through different steps in terms of how to create, remix, editing, etc. For moving forward. I didn't show that there. I will also mention that there are a few additional features in the auto numbering, basically are asking where you want this number to start. Do you want to start from 1 to 0 or something like that? For example, if you're making multiple volumes, you may want the second volume chapter to start, continue the numeration from the first volume. It's your preference in terms of how you move forward. But again, the remixer is designed in order to facilitate page level manipulation and remixing. That's largely it. Now we want to talk about editing at the content on the page. And that's where we get into other issues that are not applicable at this level. So this is the page that I was talking about, that I was working on. And I just want to go over this page in a little bit more detail. So we already talked about the fact that this bar needs to be black before we have editing rights. And that it doesn't automatically turn black even though we're signed into the conductor. We are working on ways in order to try to address that, but it requires a bit more technology than what we had in place. But nonetheless, just as long as we remember, if it's black, it's good. Then we have here the standard thumbnails. I mentioned the book that we are creating is stored in the workbench. Once I am done, let me phrase that. Once I'm happy enough, I can then move the book out of the workbench and put it into the bookshelf. That's happens as an author by requesting it to ourselves by sending an email. There is an option under the conductor, under the timeline, to be able to do that, which is in one of the features off of here that I actually skipped over when I went over the conductor in more detail. Which is right now under publishing, where you can click this button here, but we're going to move that button to the front. Anyways, let's talk. Okay, we have the thumbnails. There are a few additional features off of here. Don't ever touch this new. This new button will go away very soon for you. If you go under options, you'll have the forker, and these other options are not going to be there. Some of them are not there for you now, and they're not going to be there soon enough. And ignore side tools because you're also not going to be caring about it. The stuff on the blue panel has to do with additional features that are connected to this page. So the contents will give you the table of contents, which is a long table that's there. Readability gives you some control over different aspects of the page, including text size, margin size, dark mode if you want. Beeline Reader is designed in order to facilitate faster reading for dyslexic students. If you click on it, it will actually change the color code. So the end of one line will be the color code. Color at the end of one line will be the color at the next line over, in order to facilitate rapid changing, and makes it more difficult in order to get lost when we actually go to the next chapter. That's next line that's there. Resources are certain resources that are connected with the specific project. In this case here, some codons and a few other things like that. This hasn't been as expanded as we want it to. Tools are features that the average user may be interested in. We do have a link to the OER remixer that we're going to be removing. We want you to use the remixer from the conductor page, not the remixer from the tools. You have the ability to get a citation. You have the ability to get an attribution. The attribution is the legal aspect associated with the license. The citation is what you normally have for a paper or whatever else, with appropriate referencing that you can select here for what type of referencing system that you have. If you want, you can get the page source. This is what's in the database that's stored there. This is HTML. If you're unfamiliar with HTML, you can pretend that this doesn't exist, but this is essentially what the page is when it's stored in our database. And we'd like to have our HTML as clean as possible. So we'd like to strip it down into something that you can read really quickly and get a better idea behind it. For those of you that have some familiarity with HTML, this thing right here is a class for this page, and this tells you that this page came from the bio page 70356. That's part of our auto attribution. So when we copy this page into a different part of our book, it will know exactly where the page came from. So you can think of it as spray painting the credentials for that page that block where it came from. So you can actually manipulate things at the block level for attribution perspectives than otherwise. Toggle attribution. Watermark is a good term for describing it, yes. And then you could bookmark the page. We are removing that because basically no one uses it. And then we have a glossary for the book. This was in the back matter. If you have the glossary, you can turn it on or off. You may not like the lines that are connected to that. Last thing, if you are signed in as a developer with an instructor account, you get this another button that says developer, and that gives you a handful of other things, including a link to the construction guide, which you can expand out right here. So you can actually do a quick look and say you want to look at any of the things that we're discussing, which we're going to be briefly going over before the year, before the hour's over, including images and videos and hyperlinking and things like that. So many of the details I'll be discussing, you can look in the construction guide in order to be able to see that. There's when we make covers for printing up, you can look at the covers. You can do a few additional things that are not overly important for this matter. If you are a STEM individual and you're going to be writing equations, you can click on this thing and it will be a real-time LaTeX editor. So you can type in things here and then see it down here. And this is exactly what's rendered on a page in order to create equations that you can paste in if you want to be able to edit it simultaneously. And I'm not sure if there are any STEM individuals here. So that is the lowdown or quick lowdown off of here. I encourage you to play around with that. I know there are a few features off of that I skipped over because I want to make sure we get into the editing itself. So again, editing deals with changing the content on the page, whilst remixing or reorganizing deals with manipulating pages themselves. And I can just press the editor in the black bar that says edit, and then it comes up with this editor. This editor is what's called a CK editor. It's the most popular open source editor on the internet today. It was the editor used in Canvas for a long time, up until about a year and a half ago to 2 years ago, and they switched over to something that looks very similar, but something they have more control over than the CK editor. And much of this you have seen before in other formats. So the construction guide does have a button. I thought I pulled it open here. The construction guide has an option for basic editing that will actually go through each of the parts of this editor in order to let you know what's going on with them. So for example, this right here will save, close the editor. This will just close the editor without saving. This is a WYSIWYG interface, or what you see is what you get. Now, remember I mentioned to you that the content on the page is actually stored as HTML, or hypertext markup language, which means that the page really looks like this. However, this right here requires a little bit of a different mindset on how to edit it than a graphical user interface that looks like what it would look like when it's rendered. Not necessarily identical, but pretty close to it. So this is something that is a little bit easier for people to be able to track and use. Most people tend to prefer this editor as the primary interface for doing so. When we selected the specific technology for hosting our books, this was the only reasonable wiki that had a graphical user interface, a WYSIWYG interface. Otherwise, Wikipedia at the time, you had to write in this language, or actually in a modified form that they called WikiText, which really shouldn't exist, but that's a different story. So anyways, here is the interface, where was I? And you have a handful of things that are associated with that. I just want to mention a few things. You have the ability of making things bold, italicized, and underline. I discourage underlying. I just don't think it's a very nice style. You can then change the text color. I recommend not changing text color if you don't have to. It just gets in the way of reading and can have some issues with accessibility that need to be addressed. You can highlight things. I typically also don't recommend highlighting things because it's unnecessary in most cases in order to do, but you have the ability in order to do so. This right here is my favorite button. This is the nuclear response. This is the one that erases all formatting. And this is the one button that I really wish Word had, and it doesn't. Google Doc has. So you can come in and you can modify these things and just erase all formatting. And that's convenient because when you copy and paste from different sources, sometimes it comes in with lots of junk. Anyone who's ever copied and pasted from Word into Google Doc or vice versa, mostly it's the former, you'll have lots of junk that you want to erase. This thing here just erases it all. And you can do the same thing by copy and paste without formatting. It's the same effect. I can revert and come back to this argument. Anyways, I love this button. This gives you the ability in order to make what's called an ordered list, a list with letters or numbers connected to it, a list with bullets. This is some justification. This right here is indentation. Then comes a hyperlink. So you can make a hyperlink if you click on this, and you can select something like https cnn.com. And now I've made a hyperlink to cnn.com. This also gives you the ability to link from different pages in order to build a more structured resource. I can also unlink by just hovering over it. This gives you the ability to add an image, although you can also drag and drop, that I'll be showing to you momentarily, where you can attach files and browse and do different things off of there. This right here gives you an ability in order to make tables. And now we get into something a little bit more unique, which is a box. So a box gives you a little aside that's a box. It's typically called a container, that if you pop it here, I can say, I want an example container, and it will pop in this box right here. This is an example box, and you can type in the text and you can type in the solution here. This is created in such a way so that it handles accessibility, so that the legend here always has the correct heading. In this case, here's a heading 5, and the block down below here, this thing here is a heading 6. That's for accessibility purposes. But you can similarly go to other boxes like exercise box. We kept the color code the same because if you actually have them in different colors, it starts to get a little too daunting for people. But we do have the ability in order to provide what's called CSS that gives you the ability to change the colors off of here if you decide so. Same thing with interactives. This here is a nested box, which we typically don't do, and such. So let me unvert. Okay. And that's typically fine in order to do so for this. This right here is a heading. You want to make sure that the heading is set up in order to follow a numerical structure such that students who require screen readers in order to read the page are able to read it. So, in the old days, we would do something like this. Make it bold, and then to say that right there is a heading. But that's not kosher by modern standards, and you need to decide that this is going to be a heading. And right now it's heading 2, 3, and 4. 5 and 6 deal with boxes. So typically you can only do 4 levels, which is most pages deal with that. So I can just make this as heading 2, and then it's ready to rock. I can show you what this looks like on an HTML side, but I prefer not to deal with that. So what I want you guys to do is to find a page in the book that you just remixed from. I want you to fork that page. That gives you editing rights on that page. And I want you to pull up the editor. And I want you to be able to take a text, make it italicized. I want you to add a table, not a table, an ordered list list 1, list 2, list 3. And I want you to hyperlink one of the pages to something else. So for example, I used CNN or something else. I don't really care what it happens to be, or to a different page. This will show you different pages that deal with germination in the book. I can click on that, and now it's linked internally and such. So those are the 3 things I want you to be able to do once you've actually forked the page and you're really doing it. Once you've actually gone through that, give me a thumbs up that tells me that you're actually able to do that. With that, I can actually take a quick look at the chat. Different kinds of callouts. I'm unfamiliar with the term callout. Maybe, Jamie, you can clarify that. Or maybe you're busy forking your page. I'll do that. Nico, so basically should we ever just add a blank page? If you have original content that you're going to be putting on the page, then there's no reason to fork it. It's just basically you create an empty page and make it work. So it's not uncommon that if we are bringing in something like a PDF, we will then come in and just make an empty page and copy and paste it. All right. Tracy comes in with some issues. Tracy, can you put a link down to your book and let me take a closer look at it, please? Nika, you asked a question. Oh, under the remixer, you just basically make a new page like this. So this new page here is empty, and these are all empty pages. And then I can paste it once it's created. So call out or just color, but yes, basically, yes, a call out. It's an aside sometimes that's connected there. It's something that's not part of the flow of the book itself that you can put in there. And there are a handful of options here: definitions, emphasis, example, interactives, note, objective, da, da, da. This is a very flexible range in order to be able to do it. Note is the generic one. That's just basically something that's separate. That could be anything you want. So let's see here. Laura, you said you clicked on fork, but not getting the toolbar. You have to click on edit to get the toolbar. Tracy, you have editing rights to this book, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Carol, how do you get to your pages? If you go to your conductor page for your book, you have a button right here that says textbook link. That will get to your book. So this is always a great spot in order to access the remixer and the book and other things that are there. Lori, yes. Tracy, where are we? So don't click on page restriction. What happens when you press the edit button, Tracy? Well, Tracy, okay. So Natalie asked, if you want to create your own content in empty pages, would I need to click edit and edit the page directly without forking it? Yeah, if you don't have anything transcluded via remixing, then there's no reason to fork the page. And you only fork once, and that's it. So if it's an empty page, forking, you can do it. It's not going to do anything for you, but it also just wastes your time. But it's perfectly fine in order to go about doing it if you like. Tracy, the edit button is not connected to the forker button. So are you, what like?
I don't have the icon for forker because even though I go up to.
So go under.
Revision history, restrict access, move copy, forker. I click on forker And then it says fork this page. Okay. Then it says successfully forked. This page will now reload. And I say, okay. And it brings me right back to the same thing where it says page restrictions, semi-private. And
Okay,
there's no,
so you saying you don't have this edit button right here?
right where.
Do you see the screen right now? Oh, is it not
Uh,
sharing?
I see you looking at my book.
Yes. Do you see this
It is
button right here on the
sharing.
black bar that says edit?
You
Oh,
need to
up
click
there.
on Delmer Larson's screen.
I'm on first chapter. I'm not
That's
on,
fine.
I'm
That's
not
fine too. You should have the black, should be a button that says, okay.
edit at the top. All right.
So it looks like you
Hit edit.
manually created this page.
Well, I did because the others were saying restricted, so I made a blank thing. All right, so I see that edit button.
Okay.
Yeah,
But we gotta see if this thing rotates.
Okay. I'm more interested in
hmm.
editing a page that has content on it.
Yeah,
Are you able to go to this page right here? Well, let's go to this one. I'm going to paste this in the chat.
Okay.
So here it is. My question is, do you see a black on the black bar, a button that says edit?
Yes, and on this page, I also see that worker icon.
Yeah.
So this is a page that
You would need a fork in order to edit.
I didn't try before, but now,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Try to fork this page and then edit the page and see if it pulls up with the editor for you.
okay.
Okay. Or is it Tanya? I'm not sure which is your first name. You have your hand up?
Hi, yes, it's Tanya.
Hello?
So I'm trying to figure out where I should be editing my book. I did create a textbook in a previous training that I don't think Adapt was a part of, and I didn't think Conductor was a part of. But now when I go into Commons, for example, I was able to find my project with the book that ultimately I would like to edit and add aspects of Adapt into. But I'm wondering, did I log into something different for today's session? Because when I log into Conductor, the way that we all started this morning, I don't show any projects. Do I have two different conductors, I guess, is my first question.
Hold on one second here. Am I not sharing?
Let me see.
Was I not sharing before? I thought I was.
Oh, you
You
were
were.
sharing. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to Zoom sometimes causes issues. Uh, let me. I mean, it is possible if you didn't have an account that it's an old account. Do you know what the?
Yeah, it would be, it's in the Coastline Commons. I know the book and it looks like the project is in there too.
Okay, so
And
it's already compiled.
yeah, so it's in Coastline College campus in the biology laboratory. I can see you as part of the team even as a liaison, Joshua.
Okay, so that means you can also sign into it.
Okay. So I probably have two different conductor sites
Let
now
me
then.
take a look.
Okay,
Which one was it?
So the one I'm looking at that I'd like to keep is the ENVS C100 environmental science. Although, oh, this is weird because actually when I go on the other conductor, it does show.
When you say other conductor, I don't know what that means. You mean a different account?
I'm afraid I have a different account because can I share my screen for a moment?
Let me take a quick look here.
Okay.
So you have editing rights on this book.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there, do you want to edit? I guess
So I do want to edit, and I want to be able to use the adapt tools that we looked at earlier. My concern
to
is, okay,
embed questions into your textbook.
right, or
Okay.
little exercises or little
Right.
quizzes or something. I guess my concern is that I'm looking at my homepage now. I see under recently edited projects, 4 different boxes,
Okay.
but I don't see the project that I somehow was able to access when I went through Commons. Maybe I'm just not seeing all my projects on my homepage.
It could be possible that there are some projects that were created beforehand that your name is not connected to. So if you're willing to wait after in a half hour or so,
Yeah,
we
sure.
can take a closer look at it and figure out
Okay,
what's going on with there.
great. Thank
Um,
you.
So, but we were answering. Tracy, were you able to find the edit button?
Well, I found it on
Available.
the one that you showed me. I think the others had like a nothing but a video. They were from Khan Academy. So I tried a different one and I did find an edit button on the other. So I'm
Well,
okay.
the edit button's on the black bar for everything in your book at the same spot.
Well, there's a little pencil icon next to the title where you see the forking icon. The pages I had chosen the first 3 times didn't have that forking icon, but now I chose a different page that does have it and I can edit it.
Okay, I should mention that not every page will be transcluded when it comes in. Pages that are chapter pages that are meant to show you the things below it are not transcluded. The reason for that is the code that we put into in order to tell you everything below it can't be transcluded. It has to be in the actual resource of your book. So not everything is transcluded. So that forking button may not be everywhere. But that doesn't mean that you don't have editing rights to it, just because the forking button is not there. So anyways, there were a few questions off of here. Give me a thumbs up if people were able to handle those 3 things that I asked you to do. So I'm only seeing if, okay, I'm not seeing very many thumbs up. So let's see here. Natalie say, okay, so Natalie, I answered your question. You don't need to fork empty pages because you already have editing rights on the page. Now, I said to confirm, transcluded does not. Transcluded typically means it's not your your material, but it doesn't have to be. You can transclude stuff from your own material. So it's something similar to alpha beta in the adapt system, but you own both courses. That's perfectly fine. There may be a reason for you to want to do that. How do you make alphanumeric orderless? That's a good question. Let me pull up the right. Did I delete the? Oh, I'm using this one. Here we go. These are the 2 lists that you have access to. This one right here will give you the alphanumeric. This one here will be a bullet. If you click on this thing and you right click, it'll give you the numbered list properties. So when you right click on a lot of the things that you have here, you'll have properties connected to it. So this comes up with here. So if you decide that you want it to be alphanumeric, it then makes that list into alphanumeric. But for student perspectives, it's essentially, from a screen reader perspective, it's just basically a little tag that's at the top of that list. Similarly, if I click on this image, and I'll then have image properties, and then I'll have properties connected to that image, and other things that are connected to here. That handles Penny's question. Okay, Veronica asked, after I click fork in the page, It reloads, correct. I do not see anything different. That's fine. The only thing that would be different would be the icon that's different. If your page is already forked and you fork it, it will have no effect. It'll reload it, but it'll have no effect. Can I be sure I'm not editing the original page? You can only edit a page that you have rights to. And currently, you only have rights to the stuff that's in your book. Yeah. So you're not going to be able to edit anything that's stored in the bookshelves, period. In rare cases, we will give people access to that if we can first confirm that they are competent in terms of editing and there are no issues that will pop up from that, and that they are subject matter experts, that they actually come in and do something meaningful. So oftentimes you help in curating the content off of there. But we don't typically do that for most cases because we want to preserve the integrity of the corpus of content for you guys to be able to tap into. And if it's changing and it's being broken all the time, then we're losing the fidelity that you guys will rely on. So if you desire to be promoted to into the curation boards, then please contact us and we can talk about that. We have a need for more people on our curation boards. Okay. Marty, if we create a new page, do we need to edit and create content? No need to fork a page. I think that's, yes, that's what I just mentioned. It let me edit the page without copying the page. Carol Ross, I'm not entirely sure what that comment is referring to.
I think you already addressed that, that not all the pages were needed to be forked.
Yeah, so chapter pages do not need to be forked. But the thing is, if you look at it and you see a box, that means it needs to be forked. So if you can't edit what you want to edit, then fork it, and then you probably can.
Yeah, I could. Okay, so that's what I did. So I could edit it, but it was like one big long. It wasn't like one page. It was like the whole chapter on one big in the box. So I downloaded some other stuff. All right. I mean, I brought over some other pages. I'm gonna try to work on a different one.
Okay. Billy then asks, having problems with linking. When I click on the link icon, I get the choices to browse or search, but then there seems to be a link to internal matter only. Yeah, so you're talking about this page right here. So this right here lets you browse and such, but if you just paste right here the link of where you want it to be, that's how you externally link. Under link to. Do you see that, Billy?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
Okay. It's just it's well designed for internal linking. External linking, there's no hierarchy out there. You just have to paste the URL and run with it. Okay. Nora, how can we assign questions from Adapt? I'll get to that in a second. I was afraid that would mess up the original page. Okay, you're not going to mess up the page. I will mention one thing about messing up, which happens to everybody. So let's say I'm coming in and I delete something like that, and then I move on and I save it. So what do I do about that? Well, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it right here. Yeah. So now I've just scrambled my book. So it looks slightly different. So what do I do about that? Well, just like in Adapt, I was talking about some of the questions we have every save for the revision. Same thing happens here. So if you go under options, you can see revision history. And you can look at every history, every save of this page since it started. Well, it was created an hour ago because you saw me create it. Okay. It told me what happened. It was moved. This means it changed its name from organism to organism to love. It counts as a move. I did a forker that successfully forked it. And then I deleted 134 words from here. Every save is saved. So if I want to revert, I'm going to revert to this one. So the one save back. And it basically undoes. So you can think of this as an undo that is saved perpetually for as long as that page exists. So you can come back and you can revert it to a previous save 2 years ago if you had saved it 2 years ago. And now it's back to what it was. So what I'm trying to say is feel free to edit and massage and make mistakes because you can revert in order to be able to get back to what you were doing. It's rare that you can do something that can't be undone. And even in the few cases that can't be undone by you can be undone by us in the development team. If you happen to do things like delete a page and you want it to be pulled back from the recycling bin, we do that for people. So that's one thing in order to be able to address. Penny asked about links. We have a dead link checker that can go through a book, and when it finds a link that gives a 404, that's an error code for online pages, it will then remove that link completely. So we don't go through efforts of trying to fix it or clarify it like that. We have had an ask in order to make it, instead of an automatic change, that will give you a link that says here are all the dead links, and then it may be up to you in order to figure out how you want to restructure it. We don't have that in place yet. Right now, it's just a dead link bot that goes through and removes all the dead links out there. We've discovered there are a few sites that will provide responses that are not 404s, but that are the equivalent of dead links. So we have to expand that with a little bit more power, because more sites are doing more weird things now than they did when we built the dead linker. That is run at the time that we do a compile. And we were going to add it to a cron job, but we decided to make it so that it was manually handled by the authors, and that's going to be moved into the conductor page. So you'll be able to come in and say, I want to check my book for dead links, either show me the dead links or erase the dead links, so that the book itself has its integrity in place. For that reason, that's one of the arguments that we use, that we like people to keep all links internal rather than going outside. But I understand that there are reasons in order to go outside. It's just that when you link to outside, you have a responsibility to ensure that that link stays live, and basically do what I call link farming. And we don't have a great desire to do link farming. And you'll discover that you won't have a great desire to do link farming as the integrity of your book starts to degrade, unless you're paying careful attention to it. So Lori asks, so forking is the only, so we can change the original content we have created. Forking is taking a page that has the content somewhere else and making it so the content is on this page that you can see. So if you can see it, it's going to be there. It separates it out so that it's not tethered, so that if you update the source, it will not update your version of the page again. So you fork only when you want to edit. Otherwise, there's no reason to fork. Because if you don't see a reason to edit the page, then why do you actually want to copy the content onto the page? Serves no purpose. Okay. Looks like Lori, looks like you got it. Oh, looks like Lori helped Lori. Carol, you can't update the links on your own book. I'm not sure what that reference is for. Elizabeth, while you think about that, I'll go to Liz. Will there be other opportunities to learn how to edit content? We have our YouTube resources. We have office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you have any questions or concern, feel free to come up here. If you're in the state of California, we do workshops routinely at different parts of the state, and a handful of other workshops that we do at different points that are in place. Routinely, we have things going on every quarter, and in many places they even have things more common than that. They're more train the trainer, or they're more local events in order to edit in that are not run by LibreTexts, if people are interested. Looks like Jennifer jumped in order to address that. Zoom is bouncing around here. How do you access our office hours? It's actually the same link that you use to access this Oktoberfest, is zoom.libretext.org. Okay, Karen, if there are any errors in a published remixed book, what are our options for minor edits? So if you're saying, if you want to edit the source material, find any edits off of there, please contact us directly. When it comes to curation, we take it very seriously, and we rely on the community in order to be able to help facilitate that. So if you find any mistake or anything that you want to edit, please let us know, and we can fix it for you if you tell us. Or if you are comfortable enough in order to edit without any issues going on, we can even give you editing rights on that source material in order to update it.
Okay, so yes, that would be, for example, like minor things like a spelling error or like in a list formatting. And so my follow-up question to that is, Do I have to republish? How does that work, or does it stay?
Well, if you are transcluded, if you're tethered, then it will have no, it will just automatically propagate to your book.
Okay.
If you're forked, then you need a copy in both, you need to edit in both places. That's the reason why the curation is more effort, because it's split up. So
Okay.
but even if you have any mistakes anywhere on the library, please give us feedback.
Okay, yeah, because I'm having my adjunct faculty, we're all keeping track of it in a Google document, but
Okay.
I'm gonna wait till the end of the semester so that we just input all those little tiny errors
That's
and
fine.
make
I'll
those.
also mention at the bottom of the page, there is this helpful? Yes, happy face, sad face, but you can leave feedback directly here. So if you just want to do a quick burn, you can just type this in and it automatically goes to us. You can also do tickets and things like that if you feel like you want to go about doing that. There are multiple mechanisms. Anything that makes you feel comfortable in order to get it to us, let us know. Okay, so let's address a few things that people had brought up here. So one of them is this image right here. So this is an image with a caption. An image with a caption glued together is called a figure. An image by itself without a caption is called an image. So I'm going to edit the page. Basically, I did a Control E, which is the same thing as pressing the edit. And this is an individual image. So there's no caption connected to it. This right here is an image with a caption connected to it. So this whole thing is a figure block. So right now, if you want to make a figure block, if you go under elements and you go under figure, and this is in the construction guide, by the way, where are we? Templates. You can add special code. And the code that we have here is add figure. Right now, this right here is figure center center. That's the one that you want to use for a single figure. And it gives you an empty block. This is where you bring the image into, and this is the text that's connected to it. It just formulates it all for you right then and there, and then you can modify it. This thing does add this code right here. This right here takes the code from the title 1.4 and adds a number 1 to the end of it. So if I save this, we can do this. Now you may remember when I was talking about remixing that if you change the page number, sorry, if you change the title number, it will change the figure numbers, equation numbers, and table numbers. It does it because of this code right here. So it's 1.4.1. If this happens to be changed to 2000, whatever, here we go, 2343, then it's 12342.1. That gives you the ability to control this so that it's handled by the table number here, the title number, instead of hardwired in. This makes it easier in order to be able to curate it and keep things centralized without having to deal with figure numbers on different pages and then continuing on with the process. That can be actually quite painful for doing so. But the trade-off for that is now the numbering system is a 3-number system. So when someone says it tells you figure 1.4.3, what that tells you is the first figure of page 1.4. So you instantly know where to go find that image. Instead of parsing through page after page and find out when this one ends and when that one, how do you actually follow it? The same thing that we would do in a physical copy. This one here just goes directly to it. Same thing with with table numbers and with equation numbers. And once you actually get over the change of having a triple number system, it then becomes super easy and understand how you can actually organize these things in a more in a much faster manner than what we have in a traditional things. So that right there is a caption. Again, I can paste whatever I want here. So if I want to, I can even drag that there. And now I've made a caption connected to this. And then I can paste whatever I have here, and then it's all ready to rock. The benefits for this is not just style. It's actually it's programmatically important for screen readers, because screen readers will then be able to recognize that this text is a caption of this image. In contrast, if you actually provide this text outside, get rid of that, something like this, I'll just erase something like this. I erased that accidentally. This right here looks like it's what you want it to be, right? It looks like a caption that's connected to that image, which is perfectly fine for us, but screen readers don't recognize this text being connected to this image. And by tying them together, it makes it so the screen readers actually are better able to read the page, and that students that require screen readers are better to understand it, reducing their frustrations. It's also a critical component of WCAG, so web accessibility criteria.
Can you just show us one more time how you access that box?
It's under elements. And you don't keep in mind that you can see this under construction guides. So if you go in and you ask the question about images and figures, so 3.3 will show you how to go about doing that. But anyways, it's under elements and it's templates.
Okay, thanks.
And then you look under, and this gives you the ability of making multiple images in a row that are what's called responsive. So if they look at on a screen that's narrow, it will start to move the boxes vertically instead of horizontally, which is much nicer. That's happened here. There's a question dealing with alt text. If you double click, if you right click on image properties or you double click on here, you'll have an alt text that you have right here that you can paste into it. This right here is not a very good alt text. And that's because the source material didn't create another alt text. Now, before I talk about adding an adapt question and making things a little bit more interactive, I'll talk about something that we're playing around with. And I'm hoping to actually have something operational in 2 weeks. And we wanted to be able to build a system that capitalizes on AI ethically and productively. I emphasize those two phrases because a lot of those things out there are not necessarily falling in line with those two terms. So productively in this sense means how can we take this image and make an alt text for it automatically instead of having to write it in manually. So we are working on right now just using ChatGPT, but there are other AI models to work off of that we can come in and that will provide a page summary of this page or keywords that you can pop down here or alt text. And I could show you something that would actually work like that. For example, this is a bunch of garbage. Who knows what's actually written down here? I'm going to copy this URL. And I'm going to paste summarize this page. And it's going to grab this page and make a summary for it. And it does a pretty good job. And then we come in and start to modify it as necessary. So I can come in and I can paste this. Where are we here? Into the page summary. But do the same thing with source material and alt text and do it in bulk. So when we bring in the content, like this stuff right here, we brought this book in from SUNY Genesco. Right? We didn't create this book ourselves. We didn't put alt text. We didn't remove the alt text. There was just no alt text in the material that they created. So they didn't create it up to snuff. That doesn't stop us from then being able to update it. But the problem is that we have 1.2 million pages of content. Doesn't take much time on a calculator to figure out how much time that would take in order to be able to manually update this. This is where AI comes in and is really useful in order to be able to do that, to take the page, the content, and summarize the content effectively and paste it in. Find the keywords, take this image and make an alt text for it. And these will be options that we are going to be having a prototype for in the next 10 days, where you can come in and say, I want to see this thing, look at it, edit it, and save it, and automatically process it to make it easier for us to create accessible content that's out there and such. And even if it's 90% perfect, it's still much, much better than zero in order to work off of. So anyways, let me talk about adapt. So we talked about adapt off of here. There are these buttons right here that are a little bit more unique. You've not seen these before. This one right here goes into the Jupyter binder. This gives us the ability to embed executable code. Like this one right here. Did I paste it? I'm not sure if I pasted it. Press OK, and this is the executable code that you can see when you actually save the page right here. That right there, most of you are probably not going to be rendered off of. Looks like I pasted it up there and such. The next one, that right there is the adapt icon. You click on here and you just paste in the same adapt code that you used in order to embed a question into your adapt course. You paste this in from your course itself and it will embed it directly into it. So let's, let me pull that up. Adapt. Pre-calculus. Okay, I'm just going to copy this one, the second question of this assignment, and I'm going to add it in summatively right there. And now it adds a box, since the adapt box, it brings in the question. And it's going to show it to me as if I'm an instructor. So it's not going to be the student view, so I have a little bit of additional stuff off of here. The student view would just be this box right here. And then they can log in and they can use the adapt system directly into here. If you want to embed things formatively, you can embed it right here. For example, if you have an H5P problem that you want to embed formatively here, you have to go to Studio. I know I should just go to my Launchpad. And I just need an ID number from Studio, which is right here. And I just paste it into H5P. Where did I? Here we go. And right now you have to paste it in manually there. And then you save it. And now you've embedded that question into your book formatively. And there it is. And it's a pretty big question. So it may want to change that dimensions in order to be able to make it set by, but it's a more engaging textbook that's offered. Let me continue this process here. This last one right here, which I always mispronounce, the Vesuvian Man, the Da Vinci Man, it's a sign for accessibility. If you click on this thing, it can identify the top 8 issues for accessibility for your book, for your page. You can click through here and it will go through the page in order to be able to look at things. And it might have a conflict. Oh, here we go. It's going through the pages. And I don't see it showing up here. And I'm not entirely sure. I think it's because of some of the conflicts that we have with this code here that's in place, but it will go through and handle. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's this Python code that's actually manipulating it. And it'll go through and handle some of the accessibility issues that you have off of here. We have some conflicts off of here that I've never tested out Jupyter running on the same thing. It's a typical issue when you have multiple technologies on the same page, and sometimes they don't conflict with each other. They conflict with each other and they cause some issues off of there and such. So this just basically gives you that. If you go to one of the other pages, I'm not going to have that issue. Let me fork this page. I do want to show it to you because this real-time accessibility checker is actually pretty cool. And there we go. So it goes to this, it finds this image, and it basically says that it has no text. So the image text is empty. So it's asking, should this really be empty? Should this be decorative? If it's decorative, you mark it as decorative. If you not, then you basically can modify it and write down what it should be. Then you can go to the next one, which is the same, another one over here, which has a similar issue, that this thing has no alt text. It's not a very good alt text. So it's not necessarily decorative. It should have some explanation behind it, even though a lot of it is already in the caption that's down there. So this real-time checker complements a post-editing checker that we have in order to be able to provide greater curation, not from necessarily from the accuracy perspective, but from the accessibility usage perspective, which we have both an ethical and legal requirement in order to be able to do. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you start editing, you start getting to more advanced features, you'll start to have other issues. That's what the construction guide is for. I'll post a link to the construction guide on the conductor page for you in order to be able to take a look at it if you want. I also encourage people sometimes to, if you're going to get detailed, get immersed in this thing, is to buy a copy of it. It's something like $8 through the Lulu Express, and then you have a physical copy that you can start to work through rather than a digital copy. So with that, I think Seema was asking Olympic sign. I presume that that's the accessibility sign that we are bringing up, or that's the Jupyter sign. I think that maybe that's what he's talking about. Yeah, that's the Jupyter sign that pulls up, the one that lets you embed executable code. Nora asked a question, if adding activities from Studio, will these be able to integrate into the LMS? So you can only access the LMS through Adapt. So you'd have to bring in an adapt question. So the every H5P question that's created on Studio is automatically added to Adapt, and then you can embed it directly from Adapt, and then Adapt will communicate via your learning management system. The Studio is not designed to talk to LMSs directly. It's a different technology. It's just a different amount of work in order to be able to put that together. Can students work from the textbook and complete homework there and become? Yes, 100%. You can make your book into a homework system, or you can make it into a workbook where the workbook is done online. Both auto-graded and open-ended grading, I might say. And then all the scores pass back to your learning management system, assuming your campus has hooked up the LMS to Adapt and such. So with that, I think I've gone through all the topics in the chat. We had a few issues with accounts. Thank you for your time or patience in terms of handling that. We went through adapting, we went through remixing, we went through editing. The one thing that I want to mention here is that in addition to using the Commons and Conductor, is that it's a lot of stuff in order to master. It's not surprising that people get daunted by all the things that you have available that the LibreVerse provides to you. The key point is just take what you need in order to move forward and learn as you go, which is my best recommendation for you that we're going through. I will save a recording of this that will be posted online once we actually go through the rendering process off of there. Like I said, I encourage you, if you want to come to our office hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 10 o'clock using the same Zoom link, zoom.libretext.org. You'll no doubt hear more of us, more of our training opportunities because you now have formal accounts, and that will you'll be part of our newsletter, so you hear something from us basically every month. And thank you for your attention. With that, I'm not 100% done with this workshop. I'm going to hand this thing off to Justin Shorb, who's going to be talking about the LibreText Academy, which is a more formalized presentation of our professional development series. But I'll let Justin take it over and explain that in more detail.